The Cuomos have Chris. They're Fredo.
Yeah.
And the hillbillies from Wilmington, Delaware. There's a lot of competition here, but I'm going to go with Frank. At least
You're Frank guy, huh?
In terms of the brothers. Fredo Biden, Frank Biden. I know it was so many serious things to talk about, but this is really entertaining. So Joe Biden's younger brother, Frank, admits naked selfie on guys with iPhones gay dating site is genuine.
But he said my phone must have been hacked.
He said that, and then he said, I have absolutely no comment. I could care less. I think he meant to say I couldn't care less. But, that's why he's Fredo Biden. I haven't looked at it, and saying they must have hacked my phone. But, boy, I'll tell you, maybe a little, maybe Hunter and Frank could get in on a gay dating site or something.
They really like to show their bodies and their junk while they're in the bathroom with the toilet seat up. I noticed a pattern here.
Yeah, before we get too far along on this, though, to me, I looked at this.
Yes.
And it looks like it has all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. And I'm just waiting for
steal a laptop?
I'm waiting for Mike Morrell and Jim Clapper to come out and say as much. So just so you're scoring at home, Hunter's laptop isn't real.
Right.
Frank's phone got hacked, and Joe's Corvette is like Christine and stole those classified documents. Those are your Wilmington, Delaware hillbillies. The first family, don't you know?
Yeah, one of the Biden's going to go meet their 7th grandchild. Remember they made that big announcement? But nothing yet. Nothing in the books.
In other news related to Biden Inc., Jim Comer, head of the House Oversight Committee, let's get the speaker vote done today. New speaker installed, or the old speaker. I'm sort of indifferent, frankly, and get back to work here because this is going to need to get public profile to penetrate the consciousness of the country. And that means the impeachment inquiry leads to an actual impeachment proceeding. Anyway, Representative Jim Comer, Joe Biden's VP office emailed with his son Hunter and his brother Jim, who we have not seen shirtless yet, but hopefully at some point we will.
Yeah,
emailed his son Hunter, his brother Jim, and both of their businesses more than 29,000 times. So when he said there was an absolute wall between his work as an elected official and his family's business, this just in, real shock, he was lying. For more on Biden Inc., we're pleased to be joined by Alex Marlow. He's editor-in-chief of Brietbart News and New York Times bestselling author of Breaking the News. He's got a new book. I see what he's doing here. I see a breaking series developing. Breaking the News, his first book, Breaking Biden, his new book, exposing the hidden forces and secret money machine behind Joe Biden, his family, and his administration. Alex Marlow, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's great to be on with you guys. Thank you for having me.
So what is your review of what Jim Comer, the Jims have done? Jim Comer and Jim Jordan mainly. Throw Jason Smith in there as well. So far, after this impeachment inquiry formally was announced, even though it had been functionally ongoing for some time, are we getting to the core of this influence peddling operation, gay dating operation, and every other operation affiliated with the Biden family?
Guys, I just heard from Tony Blinken, and I will tell you that this is 100% a Russian disinformation campaign.
There you go.
Don't take the fact that Frank himself basically suggested these pics are real. Why didn't he just say they're AI? I mean, you can do that now, and no one would know the better. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. So if anyone finds secret pictures of me online, it's just going to be, no, it's just AI. I don't have a 9-pack like Frank does. Frank spends a lot of time in the gym. I will tell you that.
He loves his body. I mean, these people take naked selfies all the time as if they're like obsessed.
They're voyeurs. They're voyeurs. They enjoy it. One of the things when I was researching the book, and then I will answer your question, of course. One of the creepiest moments of Joe Biden's life actually occurred about 50 years ago. He did this interview for the Washingtonian magazine with a young blonde reporter named Kitty Kelly, and he described in vivid detail sex with his recently deceased wife. It's the most perverted thing you've ever seen, that he felt the need to try to impress this young journalist by talking about how he would be able to satisfy his wife after getting home from the campaign. There's no sane human being who would ever speak like this in private, and he speaks to a journalist this way. It actually...
And by the way, that's Kitty Kelly, like of Oprah Winfrey, Bush family, Jackie Onassis fame, right?
Yes, and she's a young, cute blonde at the time, and Joe's trying to impress her. There's no doubt about it. That's what he's doing. And he's trying to win her over by talking about how he had such a deep connection with his millionaire wife, who was not a millionaire. Her parents owned a diner, a person named Nelia Hunter, his first wife, that he would, no matter what, he could still satisfy her when he got home from the campaign. It was such braggadocio. It was so disgusting. One of the few moments of researching Joe for over a year where I kind of liked him, he admitted after he got the fallout from the interview, which was incredibly negative. Kitty Kelly could barely stand the heat. He gave her a hug, and he muttered to himself, "I'm such a sucker." And I like that, because he is a sucker. Like, no one would ever say that out loud. But they're voyeurs. They want to be naked in front of the public. To go back to your question. I can't believe how much I had to write about the penis of a member of the first family.
The penis of a what?
Of a member of the first family.
Yeah.
I'm getting off track again, but just thinking about Hunter again. Like, why did I have to write about Hunter's penis? Well, what in my life brought me to that moment?
It's it's a real commentary on where we are.
But I just don't understand why he's not in jail. If you open up the laptop, he's committing crimes and recording them with prostitutes doing drugs.
Yeah, he should be. Well, and I think Joe should be in jail for the Burisma example. I mean, it's an open and shut case of bribery. Hunter gets $1 million job, and the company has one request: get this prosecutor fired. Our own State Department says the prosecutor is doing a good job. Joe fires the prosecutor anyway. I mean, it's clear bribery. It's U.S. policy changed materially because Hunter was getting paid, and Joe did it.
But
it's patently illegal.
Just the thing on this, maybe you can clear this up, because I go back to what Devin Archer said in the interview he did with Tucker Carlson, where his impression of we've got Ashokan taking care of the prosecutor. He's taking care of. His impression was not that he was going to be fired, but that they've essentially paid him off in some material way, that he's not going to be a problem anymore. He's good there, and he's not going to be a problem anymore. And then when he got fired, Archer's reaction was like, well, essentially, that's not a positive development. That brings too much attention. So was the overt act firing him, or was that Joe freelancing or messing things up? It's unclear to me based on what Devin Archer said.
Yeah, the overt act, I would say, is the firing, because there was no reason to fire him based off of his performance. And Joe demanded that he was fired. Even our own State Department acknowledged, and this is Barack Obama's State Department, that there was no reason to fire the person based on how he was doing in his job. So that Joe Biden demanded it, which we now have on tape because he bragged about it to the Council on Foreign Relations in that infamous video that I'm sure you guys have played on the show. That is American policy changing, and the only logical explanation is that it benefits the family that was getting $1 million a year. So bribery can include other family members. It doesn't just have to be the individual who carried out the act within our government. So clearly that violates bribery statutes. He should be in jail. Our DOJ should have investigated it. And so to come back to your very important question, I generally run negative on some of these investigations. The Bidens have gotten away with things for 50 years, and I document some in the book. I don't think Joe's first Senate race was legitimate. I get into that in my research. His first Senate race, he was 29 years old that he won, I don't think was legit.
The Teamsters shut down the other side's advertising, right? This was in that book,
Exactly.
I Paint Houses.
That's exactly right. So Frank Sheeran, who people probably know from the movie The Irishman, it appears, and I don't have hard and fast evidence on this, but the constellation of facts suggests that Frank Sheeran from The Irishman, I Heard You Paint Houses, got involved and made sure that these ads that were against Joe Biden did not run in the papers. So that's a rigged race. and Joe Biden probably would never have been senator if not for that. So I'm just saying that's where you start there.
Yeah.
And then he, for 50 years, he got away with everything. So I'm very cynical that the government is ever going to hold this family accountable. Notice how they finally hauled in Hunter, and it's for the one thing that Joe has nothing to do with, the gun charge. It's the one thing where Joe's not connected.
Right.
Every other thing he's done is connected to Joe. This is the one he's not. They finally haul him in for this. We think we're going to get a guilty plea. We don't even get that. So that said, all that negativity aside, I do think we are getting some of these specific dollar amounts on some of these foreign deals. And having lived inside of Joe Biden's head and trying to understand their business apparati over the last year plus, one of my main frustrations, not the main frustration, is I have no ability to put the exact dollar amount on most of these transactions because they're clever enough to hide them, and without federal subpoena power, I can't get those answers. So when you're starting to see exact dollar amounts come out, that makes me think these guys know what they're doing and that we can be optimistic. But ultimately, we've got to get to the point, and I understand, interviewing all the second-tier characters first, but you've got to get to the point where first Hunter, but really James and Frank as well. They have just as many deals as Hunter. The two Fredos. There's two Fredos actually in the Biden family, and then hopefully Joe himself. They're going to have to come out and answer the questions what they did for these companies where they bagged all this cash. They're not going to have good answers, and I think when they do, this whole country is going to start understanding the truth.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully where we get to, no question. By the way, just in your, this is sort of an aside, and this is a little bit gossipy. I'm going a little bit Kitty Kelly here, but did you come across, looking back at his 50 years of disreputable conduct? There was always this rumor inside the Beltway that him, Chris Dodd, and Teddy Kennedy were like the three amigos or the three stooges, as the case may be, carousing in D.C. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I didn't come across anything where I could advance that story. Of course, it came up. I tried to bring stuff up where I could advance the ball a little bit and add new information or connect new dots. But those stories are out there, and given the point about voyeurism, I wouldn't dismiss anything. A lot of the things where there's a lot of smoke, the more you get to know Joe Biden, the more you expect that there is fire. And that's one thing that when you get most human beings, I find human beings interesting as a journalist. It's hard to do journalism if you're not wired that way. I'm kind of hoping I'm going to find something I like about various people. There's almost nothing likable about the Bidens. They're bad people. Joe Biden's a bad guy. He just is. You mentioned the Navy Joan. He's a deadbeat grandpa. There's a story in the book about Frank where Frank was involved in a hit-and-run car accident, left the scene, and then avoided paying the surviving daughters of the guy that he and this other guy ran over in their car. And Joe helped him cover it up. Now, Joe lost his wife and daughter in a car crash. You would think Joe would want to be empathetic here. He's not. He helps his brother hide like a coward.
Well, he also too, I mean, just Joe the Fabulous, which is a book in and of itself, but he also lied about the context of the terrible accident that took his first wife and his daughter. He said that the guy was drunk, and he wasn't.
He was a truck driver, not a drunk driver.
It's so maddening it makes you want to spit when you read this story, that it wasn't enough for him to get the entire country's sympathy, which he did. The whole country wept for him when his wife and daughter died. And he was this young guy, kind of handsome, kind of charismatic, coming in the Senate. He has his tragedy. The whole country's weeping for him. It wasn't enough for him. He had to lie about it. He had to lie and say that the driver was a drunk driver. It wasn't his fault. His wife was not driving safely. I don't mean to criticize her, but she wasn't. And he wasn't drunk. And Joe lied about it for years.
Which is just such an easy thing to fact check if the D.C. press corps, the Dem Com shop, had any interest. Because if he was drunk and that was identified at the scene, then he would have been prosecuted for vehicular manslaughter, which of course he wasn't.
Exactly right. And finally, it was like 20 years later, maybe 30 years later, they've finally there was some effort to clear the guy's name, and they did. But come on, he just gets away with 30 years of lying.
He really. I mean, I think that is the summation on them. We've talked about it a lot in the show. This Scranton Joe, and he's just sort of an amiable dunce, and now he's sort of a senile, amiable dunce, and he's not. These are bad people, up and down the roster, bad people.
He lived I'm sorry, he didn't live in a ballroom. He lived in a 10,000 square foot house. It was a DuPont mansion, and it had a ballroom in it. He's not Scranton Joe, lunch bucket Joe. It's all BS. He lived a life of luxury, and he did it off of dirty deals and his family member cashing in. And his family did deals, and I think I counted north of half a dozen countries where they had deals they shouldn't have gotten. All of these should be explained as these investigations play out. But I will say one of the things that I really want to share with your audience is that I did try to write this book to empower we the people. I think he's beatable, and I think if we underestimate him, he's going to win again. Mm-hmm. But if we take him seriously as the threat to our republic that he is, and to understand he's not a dumb guy, he's always said dumb stuff, but he's not a dumb guy. He's built a huge apparatus, and it's getting bigger. And if we get fired up, then we don't need to wait for the investigations to conclude. There's enough material in the book that people, if it gets internalized by the American public, he's going to lose. So if we can get the word out and we can get excited to go vote this guy out in 13 months, I think it's going to happen.
He is Alex Marlow. He's the editor-in-chief of Brietbart, and his new book, Breaking Biden, Exposing the Hidden Forces and Secret Money Machine Behind Joe Biden, His Family, and His Administration. Breaking Biden by Alex Marlow from Brietbart. Alex, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
You guys are so fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. Your business and your money are in good hands with Signature Bank. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Nick Philippus, co-owner of Joe Donut and a proud customer of Signature Bank. We're a locally owned artisan donut shop that focuses on chef-made small batch and craft donuts. We have 7 locations around the Chicagoland suburbs, with an 8th location coming soon. After opening our original stores in Glenview and Niles, we came to Signature Bank for financing for our new Mount Prospect location. From PPP and material delays in construction, Signature Bank was flexible and truly a banking partner that a small business like ours hadn't experienced before. Even their fraud department was able to stop a $30,000 fraudulent check from clearing our account. That allowed us to focus on selling donuts, knowing Signature Bank had our back.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Dan Proft here for Northridge Prep. Northridge Prep, great place to be a boy. What does that mean exactly? In short, it's thanks to a foundation of an all-boys environment that builds your son up into a man of intellect and character who loves God. The teachers and faculty members become mentors to students. And when you combine that with an atmosphere that's fun, competitive, and challenging, it creates an exceptional experience for your son. The result is that boys just love Northridge Prep. Northridge Prep has been educating young men for nearly, turning boys into young men, perhaps a better way to put it, for nearly 50 years. And one of the things that stands out to me is their